This is Wes S. I found a paper, essay, lecture, whatever you want to call it. See what they call it. Let's go back up to the top. This was written by people with PhDs in doctorates in psychology and stuff. They use really, really big words, and they have an amazing grasp of the English language. They're actually using words the way words were meant to be used in the English language. But their IQ is greatly above that of the person going over this paper with you, me. So y'all bear with me on this. But this is kind of what I wanted to touch on in the live stream. I'm gonna have, hold on, I got to zoom it. There we go. This is not my research. I found this at polit.econ.kit.edu. It's institutions and shared guilt. So it's I can't say their names. I'll put a link to the PDF. They're pretty smart though. Many tasks can only be completed if several people contribute. Likewise, many institutions, for example, voting rules require the support of several people to implement specific decisions. In such situations, individual costs from supporting may decrease in the number of supporters. This holds true for physical costs in division of labor. Psychological, sociological, economic evidence suggests that also moral costs due to feelings of guilt or having a bad conscience diffuse. This paper analyzes the influence of diffusion of costs in threshold public good games under incomplete information and compares predictions to those when costs do not diffuse. I don't even know what that last still read means, and we're not worried about, they're talking about why things fall apart or whatever, and why money doesn't work and blah 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 and yada yada yada. What we're worried about is the psychological aspects of this. The paper goes over the critical role that institutions have in affecting moral behavior. Specifically, we aim at understanding how several people acting together may promote or prevent moral transgression, depending on how easily feelings of responsibility and guilt diffuse. This is from December 2015. That's 2 years ago. Weird. Yada yada yada. Midway through the first paragraph, acting together with others allows for sharing guilt, for feeling less responsible for immoral outcomes, and for lowering the impression of breaking a social norm. Thus, if many have to be supportive for transgression to happen, transgression may occur exactly because of this necessity. Morality morally difficult tasks are often delegated to several people instead of one individual alone. An example are executions by shooting, where several people may act together in the shooting squad. And use execution teams. The individual is not a killer, but the group is. Uh, Additional evidence that the diffusion of responsibility is an important catalyst for reducing moral behavior comes from social psychology. Bandura, cannot figure out what that says. Uh, Show how the diffusion of guilt lowers moral concerns in a staged scenario. Subjects can give electric shocks on various intensities to other participants. If the subjects are individually responsible, the shock intensities are much lower than in a diffused responsibility setup. In the later, the shock intensity a subject chooses is averaged with the shock intensity chosen by two other subjects. Subjects find it considerably easier to administer shocks of high intensity in a later setup. Likewise, in the book The Lucifer's Effect, social psychologist Philip Zimbardo analyzes how good people turn evil. There are umpteen dozen pages of this. I don't even know, there's like a lot. Fourth of the way through and I'm on page 11. So y'all figure it out. I read through the whole thing. They've got equations and everything, and this wasn't exactly the stuff that I'd studied, because when I studied this, it was in 98, 96, 98, somewhere around in there. It still boils down to the same thing. If you can spread the guilt out, if you can make someone share the guilt with you, then that guilt becomes much easier to bear. If I should have kept that other PDF up. If you can get enough people to share the guilt with you, then that guilt or that immoral behavior no longer becomes immoral behavior. Then if you can carry enough people with you, not only does it stop being immoral behavior, like shocking the crap out of somebody for nothing, or changing societal norms to suit your personal needs or wants or desires, it switches over to changing social and moral and ethical norms to suit your own personal desires or the desires of those around you. No longer becomes immoral, because y'all all have you started out with a basis of shared guilt, and you diluted. They use the word diluted in this paper a lot. The guilt becomes diluted to a point where there's no guilt at all, and it becomes, and it's possible in the other PDF that I should have kept open, they go as far as to say that you become the norm, because the old morality has been washed away. At the same time, you are washing away the old immorality. If what is not okay becomes less and less not okay, then it moves further and further into the realm of okay. And after it gets into the realm of okay, it keeps getting mixed in and mixed in and mixed in until it is now not only acceptable but preferable over the old, outdated morality. Does that sound the least bit familiar to anybody? I suggest that it sounds very familiar. Things that our grandparents, the worst of them, would not have stood for, are now both socially acceptable and in quite a large part of the population considered more culturally and psychologically correct than the things our grandparents tried to teach us were right and wrong. Christianity is vilified. Free speech is limited to those ideas which further the delusion or the diluting of what the old morality used to be. Simply by making more and more people sign on to being a party to the guilt of the immorality. The more people you can get to commit a sin, the less of a sin it appears to those watching. And I know a lot of people don't like the term sin, but I just don't know of a better one. A 100 years ago, if a political figure in the United States said that 8 was too late, he'd have gone to prison. He sure wouldn't have got elected. And now we've got hundreds of them, maybe thousands, in political office across the country. That are trying to make pedophilia a norm. Where do we draw the line on what morality need to be changed? Where do we draw the line? Everybody's pushing for the legalization of marijuana because marijuana doesn't hurt anybody. My personal opinion is that if you are smoking illegally acquired marijuana, you do not have the right, this is me, but you do not have the right to say that marijuana should be legalized. Quite simply because right now, by purchasing the illegal marijuana, you are responsible for the death of small children, husbands, wives, daughters, sisters, mothers, grandfathers, who got in the way of trafficking that marijuana to your front door. You are guilty of those murders because you wanted marijuana. And I don't care if the stuff was grown local. I don't care if it was grown in the same county with you. You and me both know that if those marijuana growers catch you in their patch, they'll put you down. It's that simple. But because so many people want it, it has become okay. Because so many people share the guilt of what it took, what it still takes to get the drug to your role in favor, that it become okay. Nobody, everybody's doing it. I used to. I believe I mentioned that I got coming up on 30 years clean. Just because you want it to be okay doesn't mean it's okay. They have used this whole process to completely flip our country upside down. We want to stand on our rights and say, you can't take this away from me, I have a right. The thing is, with rights come responsibility. You do not have rights without responsibilities. One of the biggest responsibilities you have to your rights, to your God-given rights, are moral behavior. You have to be morally responsible to what is right and what is wrong. If you keep diluting what is right with what is wrong, then why do you need the right to do something if there is no wrong? If there's nothing wrong, then how can it be wrong to take away your rights? That's me. I'll link this paper. You can try to read it yourself. There's a lot of big words. Have a good day. Don't hate me. It's just things I think about. You watch enough young people throw their lives away, and then you learn real quick what the difference is between right and wrong. Y'all good. Be blessed.